and welcome to Confetti All Around. I am so excited for our guest today. She is a friend of mine and she lives locally, and it's like I can have her come over and we can have this really beautiful night. So I'm really glad that you came over today, Robin. Thank you so much. This is my guest, Robin Cortez. She is a program director of fitness and healthy lifestyles. She has a master's of science in exercise, sports, and sports medicine. And she's a mother of 2 boys and a wife to Walt. And I say that because I love the woman you are in your home, Robin. That is really something that always stands out to me. And that's something I want to get into because I really feel like I've met you and I've seen in these last 3 years how you've just like rolled into this life of value. Mm-hmm. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so touched that you asked me to be here, and I will take any opportunity to hang out with you and talk with you because I feel like from the moment we connected, like I've always loved talking and listening to you. Aww. So I'm really grateful to be here.
I know, we clicked right away.
Yeah, that's what I feel like.
And I also feel like there's been so many lessons in befriending you in great ways.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's crazy because I look back at the time we met, and it's not like we've known each other forever. We haven't known each other a really, really long time, but like, I still just feel like I'm different. I am a different version of myself now than I was then, but like, I need to say that like when I met you, you were one of those people for me that I knew I was like, I want to be friends with her. Like I want to be around her. And I don't naturally feel that way about everybody. Not that, and I don't mean that in a really like crappy way or anything. Yeah. I like people, but I think I'm also kind of private in some ways and sometimes reserved and sometimes hold on to information a little longer and don't immediately start sharing. But I felt an immediate connection to you.
Thank you.
Felt comfortable. Like I could, quickly fall apart in front of you when you weren't going to be like.
Did. We will get into that. And thank you. That makes me feel even more special because, right when I met you, and I wrote this down to do first impressions, so thank you for getting into that because I want to tell the people at home how we do know each other.
Okay, yeah.
We know each other from our children went to preschool together. And I remember, I think I Facebook messaged you.
Yeah.
And your youngest was so little, so you were busy. And then I ended up seeing you at the playground at our kids' school, and first of all, to me, in my impression, I was like, she's like a rock star mom. Like, she's so cool. You had like your kicks on, you always have the hoops, and you just looked so cool. And I was like, she talked to me, You were, from the moment you turned around, so nice, so kind. And like you said, I love it because just today I sent my friend a reel about some women talking about how women pursue, like, if you want to have good friendships, you have to pursue people and let them know, like, I want to befriend you.
Totally.
And
you
I
can't
felt
just
that
kind of
from
sit
you.
back and let it happen. You do have to, like, put in some effort. Like,
and I felt that from you, like, the moment you turned around, because you were very intentional. You're like, I'm really sorry I've been busy. I didn't get to your message. And I was like, that's totally fine. But I will say, I think the reason why we both get along is because we both were people pleasers.
Yes. I totally agree. I think we saw ourselves in one another, and even with all the differences we have too. Like, I think that's so deeply rooted in us that it was like, oh, it's someone who like maybe will see me for, who I am and the struggle that I'm having through it. Not that it is who we really are, but it's like the thing we were going through, and that I know for me at that time had really like just taken like a kind of a chokehold on my life.
You know what was really cool that I thought about our interaction is when I met you. Okay, so for people at home, we met around 2019, right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we both had first-time preschoolers. And then we both had so we both have 2 boys, similar in ages. And so we were both going through it. If you think about it,
and
we were going through a lot.
I'm laughing at how it was right before the pandemic, and like I really thought it was hard already. Like I already was drowning, and I think we had connected about something
about drowning,
about that online, right? Like when you had messaged me or something, and I think I was saying like, I think I immediately said like, I'm really struggling. Like, how are you doing it? It was something
I should bring
like
up that Facebook post. It was so beautiful. No, Okay, the first word I wrote under in my show notes for first impression is vulnerable.
Yeah.
I put kind as fuck. Because that was my, and then I also wrote out of my league. Because, and that was my own, that was my own, I've learned these lessons of like, why do I think that these friends are like, wouldn't want to be around me, and because we had like little things at your house that you would host.
Yeah, I
felt so anxious and uncomfortable
coming over to my house.
Well, being invited and wanting to be there, but then when I got there, like Ari was so nice, and Leo was so nice, and Sandy was so nice.
Such a nice group of people, like
legit.
I love that group of people so much.
And I was waiting for the toxicity or like. Everybody to this day is still so kind. And I remember in that, like in several of those spaces, just feeling uncomfortable, and it was not y'all, it was me. And it really provided me moments of like, why do I think that these really nice friends and moms wouldn't want to collaborate? So I just felt like you were also somebody that was vulnerable enough and safe that I could share, because I think you said like right off the bat, like, hey, look, I got a lot going on. And then when I met you, I was like, oh, but I will say, and I don't mean this like with any disrespect, but I remember you talking about being overwhelmed with work, and you said in several ways like, but I know it's me and my boundaries.
Absolutely.
I didn't think you were going to come out of that, and you did. So I want to get into your COVID story. I had gone up to you with my own burnout. And I feel like how you said, I could make so much, like you keep things in.
Yeah.
I didn't see it because I was sharing mine. And I feel like after I did, you shared yours. And that was a gift.
Yeah, well, and likewise. I mean, because it's you don't know if what's going on up here and in your heart, you don't know if it's like, okay, am I just crazy, or like, am I just being a baby about it? Like, suck it up. And, and I get really stuck in these cycles of like, I have a good life. I have a lot of privilege. Things have been relatively easy for me in many regards. And so I get stuck in that like, well, at least right? Or like, it could be worse, and look at that situation over there. And so what do you have to complain about? And I actually, a therapist once said to me when I was saying all that stuff to her, she's like, what, so you don't get to have a problem? I was like, oh yeah, I'm not special. Like, I do get to have a problem.
You're so special that you get to be special in that. I think people think that, because I do that, I was doing that so much because we've been passed down that. Like when I was little, it'd be like, but you have it good and I had it worse. People think that is self-compassion.
And
it couldn't be farther. It's like a nice thing. It's like a muffin, and it's not a muffin. It's the crumbs. It's like, well, at least you got the crumb off the muffin.
Yeah, it's like, great, cool.
Yes, and so I really loved that about you, and I loved that you were also like on this trajectory to not just bitch and moan about it.
Yeah, well, I think one thing I will say is I feel like I've throughout my life been big on accountability and self-responsibility, and that can be great, because then it will put you on that path to seek change and make active changes. I think in unhealthy moments in my life, it's kept me stuck, because it's like with my work, my attitude was, well, I chose this profession, and I do authentically love this work. I mean, I've stayed in the same line of work, even though I'm not working at the same place anymore, as when we first met. I mean, and so there's almost this part of me like that was like, you chose this and you knew what you were getting into, and you decided to have these children, and so it was kind of like, the reap what you sow kind of attitude, which is like so ridiculous,
And it's really an inner critic, but it sounds like the responsible voice.
That's what I think is like, it's very
I'm
righteous
saying what
and
I need
noble
to hear.
and doing what, and kind of like that, like, kick your own ass and get up and just make it happen sort of thing. And it's like, and again, it just comes into my mind, like, well, life could be worse. You could be working. I mean, how many people really like their job? A lot of people hate their job. So what, am I special? I'm supposed to like every single moment of my job? Like, get over it, and, yeah, it was really, really unhealthy.
Yeah.
So.
And I remember, I think it was like right before the pandemic. No, it was once we were like meeting after the pandemic, because we were texting as the group and everything, and I just remember working in healthcare, and I didn't want to share with my friends. We were all kind of texting like, y'all, this is scary. I don't like this. And I just remember the first time after like a year, we all got together outside, and I was sobbing. I don't even know if you remember.
I remember this moment.
I was so embarrassed.
And no, well, I didn't feel like it was anything to be embarrassed about. And actually, if I can tell you my perspective, because I was in a side conversation. I mean, like when we were in those groups, it's like, you know, a lot of loud conversations. There's a lot happening. And in fact, I'm the kind of person that I like connecting intimately with people. And so sometimes I would leave those situations and be like, man, I didn't really get to connect with each person the way I would have liked to. But anyway, I was having a sidebar conversation that was very silly, goofy. I have no idea what it was. Okay. But I just remember like turning over my left shoulder. I remember where you were sitting and where I was sitting, and you were totally sobbing. And I literally was like, oh my God, what's happening? What are we doing right now? You know? And then like, I feel like collectively the group just like quieted down and was like, and gave you space to be like, you know, to say what you needed to say and what you felt comfortable saying in that moment. And I just thought, oh my God, like this is someone who needs love and support right now. Like,
I was so mortified though. I could not break down. But I also think looking back, y'all were safe. The moment I pulled up, I was like, I'm not gonna talk about this. We're here to have fun. I hope I get drunk. And I didn't do any of that but freaking cry. I did like the opposite because it's what I needed. I think maybe Ari was being sweet to me because you know Ari's so sweet.
I know, she is so sweet.
And she just like asked me something and I was just and it just came, but that moment changed so much for me because it was the right environment to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. It was received well, and it was my honest truth. Yeah. And then when I saw myself after, like my body was sad, and I was like, this is not okay. Yeah. And so I really think that ability to be vulnerable really set me on projection. But I want to honor our connection because, you know, I think it was a really hard time, and then the pandemic happened, we all know, but it shut down, and then the murder of George Floyd happened shortly after. There was a bunch of other senseless murders, and you know everybody was having protests, and you know we live in Los Angeles, so we hear about all kinds of things. And you reached out to me, I think because you saw my post, like I go hard for the social justice, and so you reached out and you're like, hey, would you mind doing a training? And I was a little bit nervous because I was
nervous to ask because I was like, what if she's going to tell me, like, first of all, I don't want to do that, or I don't know, you know, it's that fear of rejection, and it's like just we hadn't like talked necessarily about stuff like that, but I had this like gut sense that like you would be a badass if you came, and I clearly saw a need, you know, in my workplace. Yeah. So
then you asked me, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I want to do it. And then I was nervous. Yeah. But what you did, it's like, what if you didn't ask? I mean, I would have found my way here, but I just want to share because I have so many friends, and you'll meet them, you'll love them, just like Robin. But like, it's these little moments where people give you a spot or give you like, hey, I think you're pretty good at this. Why don't you? These moments are big moments. And so I say yes, I get myself together, and I find myself, you know, going in a whirlwind, like I gotta talk about this, and I want to include
you were
everything.
So dope. I wish I had that like video.
I should record that.
Why did I record that?
You know, but like it was just hearing like I had all these things, and like it gave me a gauge to we got to start at the beginning because they don't know like microaggressions, and no disrespect, it gave me data. Yeah. It was like a needs assessment, and I left that meeting, mind you, I was still a full-time healthcare worker, and I thought like, I think I want to do this, you know? And so this is like, now I do CEU courses, but I really think, so then like a month later or maybe a week later, I texted you and I was like, I really like this. And I know that you wrote a program manual for your work for the fitness, and I was like, do you think I could do this? And you were like, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like no question.
And I don't know why I asked. I was like, I want her to be like, no, it's totally hard. And you're like, yeah, you could totally freaking do this. And then so this has snowballed into other things. So I just want to say thank you because it's like one moment, but I feel like we both since then have been in that reciprocity of like, you're very generous of spirit. Like when you're here, you're here.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to try. I appreciate you saying that because that's important to me, you know, to be committed and to be present. And being present can be really tough, especially with children, young children.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know yet. With older children, maybe, but it just really can be. You feel like you're pulled in all directions. But I do like being intentional about things, and I know what it feels like when I feel like someone truly is present and listening and actually like internalizing like what I'm sharing, and I like to try and give that back. I don't think I nail it all the time, that's for sure.
You're genuine. And even when you feel like something, I like that you don't just go, I think this. You approach it, hey, I wanted to know, was that, like you follow up.
Yeah.
Instead of assume.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful thing.
I do like to follow up. And I'm very curious. I like to ask questions. I think there's a lot of value in just, that's how I actually approach like training and teaching like fitness and workshops and stuff. And that's also been big, like bringing up other trainers and teachers is really like teaching the value of being curious, because like really things can go awry if we make assumptions about clients or participants in classes. So, and I think I like to live my personal life that way too,
Yeah.
I'm not always great about it with my husband. I could definitely do better in that department. I sometimes I think probably there's like a heavier ratio of me leaning toward like making assumptions, which is crazy with a person who like really adores me. It's like a great partner, but yeah.
It sounds like he's your safe place to just be like, we're just going to assume now, okay? I love you.
He is definitely, like, unfortunately for him in some ways.
But that's what I also know about you. Something I know about Robin. When you're like, I know what to expect from Robin, like, you're going to be about your husband and your family. Like,
I definitely am. I am, like, I am loyal as hell. And I will be dependably, like, I'm ride or die. Like, I love those three dudes, like, so intensely.
That was my assumption. I thought you said you were a program director at a fitness place. So my own inner child was like, oh my gosh, she's going to judge me. Farther from the truth. Farther thing from the truth. But also I thought you were totally into sports. And actually...
yeah, I know. That is a misconception about me.
Because your son, the same one that was in school with my son, first time I met him, he's wearing a Dodgers, full-on Dodgers uniform with the hat, everything.
That was it
every
day.
Talks Dodgers. Does he still talk Dodgers? Still. So that hasn't... Okay.
I mean, it's just now it's next level. I mean, like, because his knowledge and understanding of all of it.
And once they can read, he can get more...
he's... Yeah.
So I assumed, wow, she knows everything about sports, and you're actually a dancer.
I am.
You like other kinds, and you're like, no, I go to sports because my kids are in sports. My husband loves sports.
I've really had to like adjust my approach, and in fact, like when I was naive before I had children, I used to say to people like, oh, when I have kids one day, like I'd love for them to try every sport and activity and do everything. I just really hope they're not into baseball. Like I just find baseball really boring. And my whole life. I mean,
that's hilarious that
they are baseball obsessed, but I'm obsessed with them, and so I'm gonna get into it, and I will never know as much about baseball as the three men in my life, but it's great.
You're meant to be in that.
Yeah, and they're excited about it, so I'm excited about it. I want to be around them, and I want to fuel their love, and I think it's good too because I won't be that intense parent like pushing.
That's what I liked about you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I don't know that my husband would agree, but I think the older kiddo who's really baseball obsessed, like I truly feel like if he came to me in a couple years and was like, I don't feel like doing this anymore, I'd be like, great, what are we doing now?
Yeah,
like,
I see that.
I feel really open about it. But I was a dancer. Dance is my jam. I tried every sport, but it did not speak to my heart.
Right.
I love dance it. Always has. I love it. Yeah.
Oh. And so speaking about, I felt a moment in our connection after doing the workshop. I ended up leaving my job.
Yeah.
And
you're my hero.
Taking a stress leave. Yeah. And in that stress leave, I found so much about myself. It took me I'm still recovering from the workplace trauma, but I decided to step into my values, and I took big risks, and I was really worried, and I was so surprised to find a friend that was also taking big risks and living in your values. So how would you say, from the pandemic till now, we're still here?
Yeah.
What have you felt like you've really stepped into your values, and what was the moment that you were like, I guess I'm doing this?
Yeah. I actually don't think I have like one standout moment. I just don't,
Right.
I think I'm not wired that way. You know, like how
Okay.
some people talk about like, you know, the first moment that they met their partner, they're like, that's the moment that I like have a series of events.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the way I'm wired or I work. But yeah, I have to say that I feel like you like legitimately like saved my life with exposing me to the possibility of taking leave
Yeah.
and taking time, because I can tell you what I never did prior to that was rest. It was
You were a different person.
it was foot on the gas, no brakes ever. And I thought that was not only the way that I should be, I just thought it was who I authentically was. Like, I am go, go, go. If
That's
I
me.
do something, I do it hard. Like,
Yeah.
I party hard, I play hard, I work hard, like all of it, you know? And I think I ended up crashing and burning, you know? Like, you can't live a life perpetually, like, on the gas all the time, you know? And that rest, that time to step back and really start to ask myself, like, okay, well, if I'm not in this role, if I'm not going to this job, what is my identity? Because I really had made that like my whole primary identity.
Yeah.
And it was like, that is just so stupid. Like, you know,
What?
on the surface, it's like, you know, we all say, like, you aren't your job, you aren't your job title. And, like, I would say those things, too. I never would have argued with someone and been like, no, I am my job. But the way that I was truly living, no, I was living as if that was my whole identity, you know? And, I mean, to the point that I, like, was never sleeping. I just literally would work all the time.
Your value was, I'm valuable because I work.
It was, this is the most important and interesting thing about me. And if I don't have this, then what do I have? And I think for me, you know, it's like, well, it can be scary to reflect on like, who really am I? And who, you know, and like, do I even like that? Am I even comfortable with that? So it's like, oh, let's not pay attention to that.
Right.
Like,
Back to work.
Yeah, totally. There's so much to do. And I have so many people reporting to me that which, you know, I really love those people who were reporting to me, the people I worked with. I mean, those relationships are everything to me, you know, but like, I could have stood to, you know, turn the phone off every once in a while or put it aside and just let things be. So, I think I got off track and I'm not even like,
and
you know.
I noticed that when you had rest, we met at the park that one time. I don't know if you remember. And it felt like we were having like a spiritual, just like you know, take me to the river. Like, you were very authentic. You were emotional.
Yeah.
But you were like really in the change mode.
I wanted it. I was like hungry for it, you know?
And
I
then
was
you
like,
did it!
I know. I was like, I can't stand to live like this for the rest of my life. I can't do this. I can't pretend. I can't wear the mask anymore. I can't keep going back and just being like, oh, okay, well, everything else is fine, so I'll ignore that stuff over there. It was like, I just can't anymore. I don't have the capacity to do it anymore, so.
And I remember we rented a cabana at that hotel.
That was so, oh my God, that was weird. But it was so fun.
That's the first thing you thought of was that dad, huh?
That was wild.
Okay,
that was
you.
wild.
You don't know what's going on, but just to give you the story, because I know that's the first thing you thought of, huh? Because I was gonna go somewhere else, but we get to this cabana, like, we haven't seen our friends in years, like everybody else.
Yeah.
We asked if anybody wants to rent this outdoor pool cabana, and we were gonna work from home at this pool at the hotel.
Well, I wasn't. I was off.
Oh, you were off, but I was still working, of course.
I was a great friend at that time because I was on my leave. So
You're
anything anyone ever wanted to do, which that was new for me. I'd never been the girl that could meet up for lunch or a coffee and so when you're like, want to get a cabana to pool, I'm like, obviously that's what I want to go to, you know?
So we were like, I don't care what we do. I don't want to be anybody's mom. I don't want kids. I don't want my spouse here. I just want to lay by the pool. I literally said that as we're like walking to the pool that's like at the top of the hotel. And I'm like, I don't care what anybody else does. I want food. I want this pool. And then we get there and there's a kid in the pool and their parent, I'm assuming their parent, it's a dad or their parent. And we're there maybe 2 minutes. We're like checking everything out in our cabana. And then the dad leaves the kid in the pool, like doing tricks.
We were like
doing
you have to flipping be kidding me right now. Like the top number one thing that we didn't want to do.
And the kid's like flipping in the
and by the way, I don't ever want to do that. You know, I'm in a much healthier place now, much more well-adjusted. There's a lot of flow in my life. I'm very happy with my like work-life balance. I don't want to be in charge of some stranger kid, like at a pool. That is terrifying. I'm scared of being in charge of my own kids at the pool. Like no thank you.
See, he was and first we were nervous. We were watching the kid like, did he leave? Wait, he's coming. And he left for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, it was not like go around the corner to go grab his towel or whatever. Like,
he went back to the room.
Out. He trusted us.
Right.
Why did he trust us?
He didn't even talk to us. That really... So then...
I think that's what we started questioning too.
We were like angry.
We know that like we would protect this kid or do for him if we need to, but like, why are you entrusting your child?
And what if something happened and then we have to both... And so by the time he came back, we were pissed.
Yeah.
We were pissed. I think I went downstairs and talked to somebody because I was like, you need a lifeguard here or a sign because I'm not the lifeguard. But anyway, that was just a side trail. But that was a moment too where we were both like, no, this is a boundary that we don't like.
Yeah.
And we're both, I would say we were people pleasers. And we were both like, oh my gosh, that means me.
Which,
savior.
you know, I think before that, like if that had happened to me a year before that, I just would have been like, well, I'm going to step up to the plate and I'm going to, you know, and I just wouldn't be honest with myself that pissed me off. You know, I would stuff that down and just be like, yeah, well, I guess these are the circumstances and he needs me. And so, I mean, I probably would have taken it further and like talked to the kid and like, been like, are you okay? You know?
Oh, you would have engaged with the kid. Like, oh, your dad left, so let me hang out.
Yeah.
You're right.
And like make it okay and make sure that he doesn't feel it, you know, because that's where my mind goes. It's
I
like,
get that.
Is the kid comfortable? Is he wondering?
It
Like,
was
where did
uncomfortable.
My dad go?
And the kid didn't even care. Like, I feel it. Anyway, it doesn't. And that was but I liked that in that moment that we were both like, this is not okay. And I think I said, okay, you stay here with the kid and I'll go ask them if they have an employee because, you know, anyway. But I loved that we were just, you know, able to be like, wow. But something that you shared with me at the cabana was like, I stopped drinking. I gave up drinking.
I know. I was so nervous that day because I feel like I was pretty new in my sobriety.
Yeah, it was like day 6.
Yeah. And I mean, it still feels hard, if I'm honest, to this day. Like, it's not, you know, super easy.
Yeah.
But, man, like, at that stage, I was just very, like, what do you do when you're not drinking? Like, and especially if you're at a cabana, at a pool. I don't know. But
can I just say, Robin, I think that what you could have done is with that rest is get hammered every day.
Yeah.
And you did all the things at the same time. You took rest. You played. Yeah. You did the joy. You stopped drinking while you're in rest. Like, you could have really wrecked some shit up. Yeah. And you did everything for I have goosebumps. Like, you did all the things that we would want our children to do if they were feeling the way you did. Like, you really took care of yourself.
I haven't thought about it that way. That's a very
it's cool. That's why you're here, because I'm like, tell your story, boo. You did all the things.
Well, you know, it's again going back to the accountability and the self-responsibility. It's like while I was doing the things, the drinking really started to stand out to me as I was taking stock of like, okay, what can I take ownership of and what do I need to shift in my life? And it's like, you know, I was taking the rest and I was spending so much time with the kids, which was just like, it was the best. It was so much fun. And sometimes it wasn't fun, you know, it was also the opportunity to immerse myself in the hard stuff and really pay attention. And like, you know, when you get the uncomfortable calls from school or, you know, whatever's going on, that's normal stuff you deal with kids, instead of like kind of sort of dealing with it, but then being like, oh, I got to get back to work. It was like, no, this is my job right now. Like this, I'm going to immerse myself in it. So anyway, it's like I'm doing all those things and I just feel like the drinking then, because I was doing the other things, it really was like, so are you going to get like fully honest with yourself? Like, or are you only going to do this like 90%, you know, because this is an obvious area that is holding you back, you know, from living your best life and really is getting in your way because it, you know, it was awful, you know, and it was privately awful because that's another thing is like, I don't think that I was ever the kind of person who, I had the experience of when I decided to get sober, a lot of people like would react and be like, well, I didn't even really know that was a problem for you. Like, I don't, so I don't have those pivotal moments of like, well, I drove drunk and crashed my car and then it became obvious that I needed to, it wasn't like that. It was a series of living a life where I was just like constantly drunk or constantly feeling sick from having been drunk or, and just crazy nonsense stuff, like I remember one time, like I had signed up to assist with, I think there was a neighborhood activist who had helped somebody who had been living on the streets like find temporary housing in like a local motel, and so she was asking if anybody could donate meals, and I was like, oh, that's easy, like I have time, like, and I was so excited about this. I was gonna cook this lasagna, like I was all about it, right? I remember the day that I woke up to do that, I was still drunk, like from the night before, and I remember like looking at myself and being like, what are you doing? Like, you're this kind of person that's committed to doing for others and serving others and this life of fitness and wellness, it's like, the joke is like, you're treating yourself terribly, and like, what could you possibly be doing if you weren't like letting, alcohol consume your life? So anyway, once again, I think I've gone off on another tangent.
No, I love all of it. And that was like a moment where you were like, who really are you?
Yeah.
It sounds like you were treating other people with all the kindness, and at the end of the day, there wasn't enough for you.
That totally resonates.
Done with that. I don't know, this beer will be kind to me.
That's exactly it.
And it's like you just were handing out your light every day.
Yeah, totally. And just so depleted by the time.
Because I know that you told me that, and I was like, oh, well, we got this cabana. I don't know if I drank. I don't think we did. They didn't have any food service.
Yeah, see, joke was on us because we couldn't even get a piece of ice, if you remember. Like, that guy was real pissed. I really inconvenienced him by asking.
Right, remember that whole day.
And when he told me there's no buckets, I was like,
buckets, nothing. And I'm like, we paid so much money for this cabana.
And I was like, this hotel's not full. Like, we can't have a bucket.
There was literally nobody. I love these.
But again, the people pleaser in me was like, am I asking crazy questions? Like, am I being too high maintenance? Like, if I walked in there like some bougie, like, and it's like, no, I just want a bucket of ice so we can like put my soda on it.
I want to share. I also wanted to ask you. You were talking about this moment. When you decided to stop drinking, was it something you were like, I'm going to talk to my family about it, or was it something like, I'm just going to see how this goes? How vulnerable did you get with that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was really scared to talk to my family about it because my family boozes it up a lot. That's like part of how we have fun together,
Like, Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the places that it still is challenging for me. You know, like I'm not going to drink, but that is kind of a way my family bonds. That's like in my house. You sort of at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever, you start busting out the cocktails and it's just fun and you're joking around and chatting and drinking and it's like festive. So, so no, I didn't feel like I wanted to go straight to them and let them know. And I do know the moment that I decided I wasn't going to drink anymore. And it was actually at my parents' house. And it was and that's the house I grew up in since I was in kindergarten. And, It was actually my brother's birthday, and we had gone over there for a birthday celebration. And as we were driving down there, I had made a promise to myself: I'm only going to have one drink, and that's something that I did for years and years and years, where I would make these promises and break these promises because, I just can't. And if I knew that I could just have one drink, I would be drinking. Like I would love to just have one drink, but I don't do one drink. So, not shockingly at this stage of things, I broke the promise to myself. And I remember it was just like a moment where it was just too much to take. It was like, how many times am I going to let myself down, But I remember it's like my dad offered to make me a martini and I was like, hell yes, I'm going to have a martini. And then, and then I'm 2 in and 3 in and just, up in the middle of the night by myself. I remember everyone was asleep in the house, and I actually found an online community. That's where I went, like in the middle of the night, because I was like, I feel like I need
that day
connection. Wow. Like, you know, and I found this really cool app, you know, for people who are seeking sobriety, and connected with awesome people on there, and it felt relatable, you know, because again, like my vision of like having issues with alcohol was like, you beat your children or you drive drunk, and, you know, like that kind of stuff. And I didn't do that stuff. And so again, I think a lot of times I let myself off the hook because I was like, well, I'm not doing that. It's like, obviously I don't have a problem. Like,
yeah.
You know? So yeah, I mean, that really was like, I guess if there is a moment, but it's interesting because that wasn't one of my lowest moments.
Right.
I have lower moments.
I feel like you were right. You're like, what? That's nothing.
Like
you feel like you were listening to yourself.
I was
like yourself kept knocking on you and like, hello, we're doing this.
I think I was doing all these other things and peeling back the layers and getting more intimate with myself, and then it was like, damn, but I'm gonna like continue to let myself down in this regard. Why? You know?
And no wonder you would wake up with shame because you don't stop the thing, so the shame doesn't stop.
Totally.
Totally. I'm just so proud of you. I think it's so cool. And even just because you say that, it doesn't have to be this big groundbreaking moment. You're just like, I think I want to know who I am. And who am I without that?
That's what it was.
What have you found out about yourself?
I've found out that I'm pretty shy. I think I knew that about myself when I was really little. I was really shy when I was a little kid. Like preschool, like my kids' age, you know.
Your kids are not shy.
Yeah, no, they're not shy. No, they're perfectly fine.
Go ahead.
They are good to go. They have Walt's personality.
Neither of them are shy.
Yeah, no, they're good. Yeah, I've found out that I'm shy. I've found out, you know, it's solidified like a little bit of what I was talking about earlier, where I really like intentional connection, one-on-one.
Yeah.
I really prefer that versus being in large groups. I can do the large group thing. I've lived a life of being in front of large groups.
Yeah.
And so I think I've kind of like mastered the act
of
like making it happen. But I like being one-on-one with people. And I've found that I prefer authenticity, even if it's going to make me uncomfortable, even if it's going to be things that I disagree with or they don't resonate with me or what. I really prefer that over like the surface, like just chit chat about what we did during our day and I can't with it anymore.
That is something that I think has been what I really can know that I can connect about you. And I actually want to ask you about that because you have your master's in science.
It's exercise and sports science.
Thank you, Robin.
I know, it's like a mouthful.
Sorry.
It's like, what even is that?
No, I'm like, I want to thank you. But, you know, I think it would be common for people to get nervous. Like when I say I'm a therapist, they're like, I don't want to tell you anything. So I wonder if you get that.
Yeah.
And you're just so the opposite of what I assumed.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to speak to that because what you talk about, like, it makes me feel seen. It makes me feel normalized. In the pandemic, like hearing you talk, I was like, I think I gave up something too. It was 2020. It was that first Thanksgiving in the pandemic. So we ordered to-go food to sit at the house, just the 5 of us in my house. But because I was working in healthcare, I was so stressed out. Yeah. My body was just like having so many stress responses. Yeah. And we ordered like a turkey dinner from Lucille's. I used to work at Lucille's, so ask Mike. Every time I'm like, I know where to go.
Lucille's.
You want cheesecake? I know where to go.
That's awesome. You worked at Lucille's? I didn't know that.
Oh, honey. We could never afford the food because we worked at Lucille's, but it was great. But anyway, so we get turkey dinner from Lucille's to go, and I can't eat the turkey. Like, I'm like grossed out. And since then, I like couldn't eat meat.
Oh, yeah.
Or like poultry, pork.
I remember you making
And then I was
shift.
like, I only want to eat vegetables. I started juicing. Like, I started getting into this natural. And so what I really gave up naturally was a moment where it was like, I treat my body like crap. Yeah. I put crap in my body. Yeah. And so I felt like I have really given up a lot of the way I ate because I was intentional. I'd be like, you say that you treat yourself well. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, you're not even thinking. And it was like my body was like, stop it.
Yeah.
Because this part is good and you're ruining it with this crap.
Yeah, it's strange when we identify this disconnect where it's like almost, I don't know, this isn't the greatest way to put it, but it's almost like being hypocritical. That's how I felt, was like, I'm always talking with people about like being their best selves and like, how can I help them like find healthier lifestyles and stuff like that. And then it's like, hey, dummy, like, then what about this thing that you're doing over here? Like, is that really, what you authentically want?
Right.
Like, are you living this out? Like, again, and maybe that's kind of problematic because it's that whole, like, I have to go 100% and I have to, but anyway, I think in this regard, it's served me. It's helping me.
Yeah, and I also think your vulnerability, like, you're a really great, this is why I wanted you to be here because, I'm a therapist. There's so many therapists that have, difficulty with their drinking. They feel like they wish they could drink less, or they're embarrassed that they like. I talk about how I use plant medicine as my anxiety medication, but I know there's people that like, I don't like how much I use. I don't know how.
Totally.
I don't like that I need that all the time.
Yeah.
But we don't want to talk about it because we're like, if people know, then what if? But I have learned that there's so much value in being honest and authentic because then people are like, oh, you understand? Well, I want to go with you. So I feel like there's a lot of people in the fitness world that talk fitness, but they've been drunk all week. They use all kinds of, like they're not being good to themselves or they're restricting their body from
That's it.
And so you being vulnerable is like, I'm sure there's a lot of people on the fence of like, am I? And here you are. So I just thank you for that. And I think your vulnerability really is what makes you a really great coach, a really great director. So thank you. And my question is, like, what I love about you is your perspective on diet culture. So I'm going to ask you about it. So what is
you mean that I have nothing for it?
Right. What is your take on diet culture or like healthy lifestyle, and how has it differed like since you graduated and now? Like where were you and where are you?
Yeah, I feel like the foundation of how I feel now about diet culture, it was in there somewhere, but I wasn't living it out authentically. So, like I said, I got nothing for diet culture. I think it is extremely detrimental. And oftentimes people will say to young women, it's detrimental to everybody. It's detrimental to all of us. It really is. This idea that the most important thing about us is our size and our appearance. I mean, I can't with it. I'm just over it. Yeah. And it's crazy because the messaging, the programming, it is everywhere. It is everywhere. Yeah. And once your eyes, you talked to me about this when it came to topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you had said to me, it's not necessarily people's fault that they may be ignorant. They may just not know. And oftentimes, if they get the opportunity to read the things that you would recommend, like their eyes will open and they'll be like, oh my God, I just didn't know, you know? It's much the same from my perspective when it comes to diet culture, which actually happens to be intertwined, and like really deeply rooted in white supremacy. And that's a like whole other thing.
Would love to have a part two with Robin and I talking about that. Yeah,
but yeah, like once the veil is sort of taken off, so to speak, you realize like, wow, like everybody around me is talking like this and the messages are just, it's nonstop. So I ask when I'm interviewing people to come onto my team, I'll ask them like, what's, if you could change anything about the fitness wellness industry, what would it be? And that will tell me a lot about where they are,
Have you had some like, they think you want to hear that and
100%.
That ain't it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, that ain't the flex you think.
I didn't know that there were wrong answers, but like that's a wrong answer. Right. that's not the one.
So I'll refer you to this gym or this place. I know where they would love.
Definitely, like you wouldn't be happy working with me. Like you'd be annoyed and think that I'm wrong. So like this isn't going to work out. This isn't a good partnership. Yeah. But for me, it's the diet culture. I mean, like if there were an opportunity for me to like just wave a magic wand and for us to be done with that, that would be it for me because. Again, the notion that like what is the most important about us is our, size and appearance paired with this constant attention to restricting. Yeah. I mean, all it does is talk about wanting to live as your authentic self and live in your values. And I mean, the restriction that diet culture places on people, I mean, just totally disassociates you from who you really are. So yeah, I mean, I feel like this is my life's mission. Like, this is what and I really, it's been so invigorating, like really stepping into that. I used to, like, when I first started out teaching classes, I would say to people things like, don't do diets. Like, diets don't work, so I've always been like that. I mean, I was never the person that was recommending, like, I think Atkins was really big, like back when I, was like first starting out. And I remember like hearing what people would do. And, I would dole out the recommendations that they not do that stuff. However, again, Miss Hypocrite over here, I was totally restricting. I, for myself, had so many food rules. And while I would tell people, your appearance is like the least interesting thing about you, I was really wrapped up in making sure that I looked the part. Like, I was very worried in my early 20s. Like, well, if I don't look like super strong and fit and lean, like, people won't even take me seriously, And I was, which is so really funny because
for somebody going in, it's like, oh my God, one more fit. Can we get some chub in here?
Yeah,
and you're thinking, I have to.
Yeah, I really thought I had to. And what's interesting is there's actually really great data now that shows that people want relatable looking and speaking and acting, fitness
real
professionals.
People, yeah.
And there's a lot of organizations that are still not bought into that. And and it's like, you can present them with the hard data and they're like, no.
We want Hollister. With moves.
Exactly. So, it's been a big shift for me. And that's part of the stepping into my vulnerability. And like, I just wasn't ready to be vulnerable, in my early 20s. I really wasn't. I was uncomfortable with myself. I was so worried about what everyone thought. I was so worried about making sure everyone else felt comfortable and felt like they could trust me. And
we're good? Everybody good?
Yeah. There's just no way. I just wasn't ready to do it. And I think at this stage, 20 plus years in, it's like, I'm barely ready. I am a work in progress. I said to somebody at the gym today, I had said, listen, like I have not crossed the finish line on this. It is still active work for me, and I'm very outspoken about being very anti-diet, not doing that. And yet, I still have to check myself in moments where, I'm not going to follow a formal diet. That's just not, I cannot imagine a world in which that would happen with me. But I do find myself sometimes going like, well, I really should eat this right now. And this is, and getting away from like truly eating intuitively and really asking myself, but like, what do I want to eat right now? And it's not just a physiological thing. The physiology is important and food is fuel, but like, there's also so much more to food, than that.
And then when you're eating intuitively, you're strengthening the muscle of your intuition.
Exactly.
The connection with your intuition.
Exactly.
And then food becomes a relationship instead of like, oh my gosh, here's food again, which you're going to have to eat the food.
You are going to have to eat the food. And like what I would say is, food is also meant for enjoyment. Like, what is wrong with, like, because there are so many fitness professionals that are, talking about, and they think they're doing a service. And again, this is not me over here kind of like on my high horse and sort of like, well, if you just act like me, it's me. I identify with it because it's exactly what I did, before. And I've said to you, like, I feel very apologetic about like a lot of the things that I've said in front of classes of 50 people.
I feel like times have changed. Don't you feel it coming? Like,
I do.
If you're even close to me with a body shaming or a diet, like that is very 2019.
Yeah, we're not doing that anymore.
We are all barely hanging on. If you're healthy, I think I had a realization in healthcare. I would always be nervous, and I worked at the end of people, like usually people were very chronically ill or they were even going on to palliative or hospice care.
Yeah.
So I would start to look at bodies like, this is a body. This is a mass. And there's a spirit in there. And here I am judging somebody's body or my own body when we're all bodies at the end of the day in a bed that help us get to what we need to do. And the more I started to see patients, I'm like, I just want to be healthy. I just want to be, because we're really just looking at skin.
I
And
know.
we're talking about skin here. It's just weird. So
there's this meme, and I'll mess it up because I'm not really good at like remembering the details about things like that. But it was something about, it was referring to Mother Teresa and the work that she did, and it was saying like, you think she had time to sit around and like worry about whether she had a good body or if she, and it was like, oh, and not that I'm Mother Teresa by any stretch of the imagination, but like, yeah, I want to do more important work than like sit around and like worry, you know, every 5 seconds if I'm thin enough or strong enough or fit enough or look the part or you know. So, yeah, I'm over it. And if I can just impact the people around me, like one iota, you know.
But I think hearing it from someone who is the fitness professional, then it's like, it's like a breath of fresh air. We can let our guard down and party with you. Like, what are you bringing at the Super Bowl party for the appetizers?
That's right. That's what I'm talking about. Like,
Real
what are we
food.
eating?
Right. You're always down for it.
I am.
Let's see. So, okay, another thing I really love about you, and you know I've moved into this, I moved into like when I was telling you about Rooted in Reflection, I really started with like this inner child. I'm your inner child hype woman. But I really feel like.
And you so are.
It's so weird because I feel like you really saw me in the like, I'm doing this. And
I
then
know.
it's like,
And I was like, yeah, let's go.
I really remember even we were on a walk down the street.
Totally.
And you're like, I like your hair.
Yes.
I cut my hair in a crazy moment. It was like in the shower. I don't know what's going on in my life. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I had this like ponytail that I hadn't taken out my ponytail because I was so stressed at work. Like you didn't know this, but
I didn't.
It was like I had a lot of hair. It was like 2020, like summer, you know, working in healthcare. I was just so burnt out. I was so sad. I was depressed. I was so scared. I had this ponytail and my hair had knotted so bad because I just hadn't done anything. Yeah. So I was just like, got some scissors from the bathroom.
I did not know this is how it went down.
And it was really like a moment where I was like, I don't think I'm well, right?
Yeah.
But then I ended up taking stress leave, disability, saved my life, and then I got a haircut or like fixed it, and I was like, oh my gosh. Well, I look in the mirror and I was like, this is not you. And I heard this judgmental voice, and that day I like took the voice out of my head and I saw myself. So then I was like, well, let's just like fix your hair up then. So I fixed my hair up. I think the next day I saw you, or that day, and we're walking and you were like, I like your hair. You cut your hair. And I was like, and I saw myself talking to you out of body, and I was like, thanks. I haven't had my hair cut like this since I was 10. It's like my inner child just chose it one day. I think that, and I was like, this is Cynthia. Like, it was the day that I stepped into Little Sin and committing to her joy. It was like, you're on, little girl. What do you want? And the haircut was like the first step. So you kind of saw me in that and really talked to me.
Oh, and it just looked fabulous. Like,
well, thank you.
Like, this so works.
But it helped me get into like, oh my gosh, that day was like, bye, whoever you are. And this is my time. And so you helped me like, just in that conversation, I was like, whoa, you know, I really saw the full magic of my work, of like the internal work. But now I feel like I've grown into this like inner ancestor where I'm really like more mature, like inner mother, but also like,
look at us,
right? Like a living ancestor, I like to say. One thing I really admire about you is how beautifully you talk about your mother-in-law and the help she does with your kids.
She is like an angel.
Like the way every time you talk about her, you're like, oh, and she did this. And
no,
like,
because truly, I mean, like, she really is just one of the nicest humans on this earth. She really is. And like in the beginning, I was like, there's just no way. Like, there's no way. Like, once I get to know her, totally. That's what I felt. I don't know that I've ever met someone else quite like her.
You're lucky, girl.
I know. That's what I always say. It's like, it's enough that I like found this wonderful man who's a great partner and I love doing life together. But like, the bonus is that he comes with this woman who just, I feel very seen with her, you know?
I think that's it. Every time you talk about her, I'm like, she's really like sweet to you.
Yeah, and you know, it was funny because like when I decided to take the leave, I was like really scared to admit that to her, and I felt this shame, like, well, now she shouldn't have to come and, like, take care of the kids ever. Like, I should be doing it. And I remember standing in my kitchen, breaking down and finally telling her, and she's probably the last person I told. Like, there was something about it that I don't know. It was hard
And how
for
did
me
she
to say
respond?
that. She gives me this big hug. Of course, I'll keep watching the boys. I love being here. And she always says, "What else do I have to do? I want to be." She's just amazing. And let me back up. It's not lost on me, especially now as a mom myself, that she raised this human who I love so much, and I have unending gratitude for that, you know, like, and I know Walt is who he is because of who he is and the choices he's made, but listen, she had a lot to do with it.
And you can see it, like, I think, when she's in your home.
I can. I love her energy in my home. I will be forever grateful to her, you know, for all of it. All pieces of it.
But I think that's really important for, like, your kids to see this and honor this. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think her legacy in your kids' lineage will be? What is she going to be remembered for?
Well, you know, my kids have a very close relationship with her. I mean, they do. They spend a lot of time with her. You know, I think what they get some things from her that they definitely don't get from me, and that's okay. I think that maybe before I would have felt like, oh, I got to do better, and like really judgmental of myself. You know, and not that I don't have work to do. I do need to improve on these things, but I'm also a lot more comfortable now, kind of going like, okay, that's just not one of my strengths. And it is
grandma for that.
Yeah, exactly. Her level of patience and her tolerance is just, she really knows how to meet children where they are and just operate on their level. Whereas I feel like I am often trying to like, okay, let's rise to the occasion. And whether it's actually like physically hurrying up to get somewhere or just having expectations that are kind of beyond, you know, where their age or maturity are. And she's just not like that. I think she just really comes in kind of like just open, just like, what are we doing today? Like, you know, and you lead the way kind of thing. So there's that. I really like the kindness that she models. I mean, truly, like the fact that I have never heard her speak ill of anyone, under any circumstances. I mean, even to the point that like, I can't think of an example right now, but I know there have been times where like I've complained about someone or something, and she's very positive about it and very like, oh, well, you know, sometimes that's how humans are. And it's like, I'm not like that. I am full of judgment, and I've got stuff to say about how they're behaving and how they could do better. And so I love that. I love that she really is modeling kindness at all moments.
Can you imagine if you took this rest, it was a different mother-in-law, and she was... What?
I know.
What kind of mother or judgmental? You would already feel more shame than you had. And instead, she offers self-compassion. So she
gave me the space to heal. She really is a very, very important part of that
But
puzzle.
I also feel like you have awareness to her good qualities. It's not like you could be jealous of them. You could be,
that's true.
Like, God. Like, you know, like as mothers, it's easy for us to be like, oh, so she's better, you know, but you don't. I feel like you see it and you honor it, and you're like, thank you for being here with us, instead of like trying to, you know, like take it personal.
No, that's true. So and I'm smiling because like there have been times where the boys are like, I don't want to be with you, I want to be with Abwe. And I'm like, yeah, me too. Like, I also would like to be with Abwe.
We gotta give her some time. My kids always want to be at my parents' house, but I know with like my 5-year-old, when he says it too, it's usually because I said no to something.
Yeah, 100%.
And so he's like, I know where I can go.
I know.
And he says, I just want to go to my little blue house. Little blue house is grandma's house. Her house is blue. And I was like, okay, well, you're going there in 3 days. He's like, can I call my little blue house? And that's like the house of like yes and love and like whatever toy you want.
So great. It's so fine. Special. I mean, it's awesome. And I think if you personally as the mom, you know, can get yourself to a place that you don't have to have like your ego stuck in that situation, it's a really beautiful thing.
It's a nice pocket of peace to be in. Yes. Which brings me to 2 more questions.
Okay.
What do you do personally when you fall off your rituals? Like you're in a good flow, but let's say some BS went down. How do you find your groove again? What do you do? What things are you going to be doing to get back on your ritual?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that I do now that I'm really proud of, because I never used to do it before, is I rest. I'm very protective of my sleep now. To the point that before I felt beholden to being a part of the boys' bedtime routine. And I will on occasion now, and that this may not sound like a big deal to other people, because maybe other people are healthier with this stuff than I was, but I really thought like I couldn't exist in a world where I wasn't there to put my kids to bed every single night.
Yeah.
And now there are times where I'll be like, yeah, I'm not feeling great. I've had a very hard day. I just need to go to bed, and that's a major turn for me. I mean, that is just not how I was. And I can't tell you how much I used to not sleep. I mean, I was so sleep deprived, probably from the time I was about maybe 17 or 18.
Wow.
I mean, all the way up until when I took that leave, and started to get rest. So that's really the biggest thing, I love being active. I'm the kind of person, and I recognize that not everyone is like this, but being physically active is attractive to me. And it's not because I want to look a certain way or because I think I should do it. I feel great when I'm physically active. So I still love to dance. I love to lift weights. I love practicing yoga. I also really like the breath work and the meditation in yoga.
Yeah.
Those are all important things to me. But sleep. I've never valued rest and sleep the way that I do today. So and I think it's all too often that, people aren't getting enough of that, and we don't realize. I mean, and it is like one of those obvious things, right? You see a kid who's starting to melt down, who's starting to act up and stuff. A lot of times he just needs some rest. Go take a nap.
Right.
Go take a nap, but then somehow, again, it's that rules for you, but that doesn't apply to me.
I'm not deserving of this. You deserve it. Yeah. I'm not. That's what I've really come down to. I'm like, oh, why is it okay for others, but not for me?
Yeah.
Why do I treat myself like the bottom of the pan?
Totally.
Beautiful.
So, part of the sleep and the rest has been getting comfortable with the fact that means I'm going to let some other things go. And I may even let someone down. And I've really had to step into a level of comfort with letting people down in certain regards, You know
what's funny? When I took a stress leave, I had to. My body, I had shingles. I was in the hospital for dry heaving.
Do you know I've had shingles too?
No.
I don't remember if we
was
ever
it
talked about
stress? Because
it was right before my wedding. Yeah, it was.
It is not. Does it still flare up for you?
No.
I'll have it on my back.
No,
and
mine doesn't.
I feel like it's when I'm stressed. I feel like a little bit of nerve. Anyway.
Interesting.
Wild. But when I took a leave, it was like I was having panic attacks. It was just like my body was like, no.
Right.
No.
I'm going to do whatever it takes to get your attention right now, ma'am.
Right. And, I worked in healthcare. So in the nursing culture, in the social work culture, I think it's changing. I hope it's changing. Yeah. This is what I'm here for. This is why I do my workshops.
Well, I feel like you're part of the movement. Like, you're affecting meaningful change in this
thank you.
Space.
But we used to go hard for whatever. This is so. It's like diet culture. Like when you think about what you used to go hard.
I know,
it's
what you valued.
You work in labor and delivery. That's easy.
I know.
Work in ED. Work in med surg. Work in the really hard, traumatic things. Then talk to me.
I know.
Or I picked up. I worked overtime for 3 weekends already.
Yeah.
Like, you're tired. It's like this constant, you're mad that somebody's texting you at 8. They're working harder than you on their notes. And you're like, but I kind of don't want you to text me after work. So, if you
call me crazy.
if you complained about work, it's like you were, not a great clinician. Yeah. You were lazy. And I think that that's still a lot of there. And now we're finding burnout. But I went to my colleagues and I was like, hey, I'd like to, can we meditate? Can I have 15? And they didn't want to hear it. And I realized, you're not going to make time for this.
In my taking my leave, one of the things I also had to really settle in, again, it's that idea of letting people down. I really, it was this moment where, I had a relatively large team of people, and it was I was just saying peace. I mean, I took time to get them organized and stuff. It wasn't really abrupt. But the point is that I knew I would think well, what if these people are like talking about me, and like what if they think what if they think I'm crazy? Because I was pretty open. I was like, well, I need therapy and I need time to go to therapy, and it's not working with my work schedule, like. And I was like, well, what if they're making judgments and with it? And then it was like, yeah, what if they could probably learn something from it, Probably some of them need to do it too.
Right.
And like, that was a big shift for me, because as a person who was so worried about making sure they were okay and they were happy with what I was doing and I was living up to their expectations, whether my perception was even real or not,
and how about, what if you don't value their expectation? I realized this is not the flex I think it is.
I know.
Rest is the real flex.
I know. And you know what's crazy is ever since that shift and leading from that space, I feel so much more connected to my teams. You can see, and especially like now that I had, just in the last like 6 months or so gone to a new organization, and so that's just like clean slate. Like they have no idea what to expect. And I can appreciate that there can be some anxiety around a new leader coming in and you're kind of like, oh great, like who's this person? And some of those people have worked there for like over 20 years, so they know what they're doing. Like, they don't need some new person coming in and being like, do da 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 da, right? But I can see that part of how I have connected with these people and earned buy-in, and I haven't with everybody, it's a work in progress. But with a lot of the people to whom I'm the closest, it is that spirit of we rest when we need to rest.
Yeah.
And, oh, you're sick? Then don't come to work, but it's not COVID. Oh, okay, I don't care. Like you're sick. Like you need, not that I don't care. I do care, right. But it's not, come to work, but only don't come to work when you have COVID. It's you can be ill with a variety of different sicknesses, and that's probably your body indicating you need some time to take care of it, so go heal. And you see people like, wait, what?
That didn't go how I thought it was going to go.
And what's the catch? And I could sense that someone who works pretty closely with me, he's almost been he's been so hesitant to ask for time off when he wants to go on a very reasonable vacation or whatever, and every time that I'm like, yeah, you're going to go. And, it's like, well, what about this? What are we going to, and it's like, it's going to be fine. We're going to figure it out. And maybe I won't do it as well as you do, while you're gone. And you know what? It's still going to be okay. You're going to get it figured out. And I feel like I see, I think you're also talking about awareness. Yeah. And awareness is a mother effer. Because once you see a piece, you just keep gaining awareness. And it's like, awareness forces you to change. Mm-hmm. Or be miserable because now you see it. Yeah, and you're just totally. But that's why I think we avoid awareness, because we don't want to really confront it. And then once you do, you're like, oh my gosh, and what about this? And how about... Yeah. But I realized that work was another place where I was allowing people to treat me however they set the boundaries to be, because my childhood was already that. And I think work does expect, because I also think after COVID, this whole you don't bring your life into work. The minute you walk in this door, and I was like, good luck with that, because we're all that's over,
right? It's done.
Cannot be a robot.
Sorry. And we're all kind of building this awareness of ooh, I can't believe I used to let that, you know. And so now, even being rooted in reflection, working for myself, I still find myself oh no, someone's gonna, and I was like, you're your boss. So how are you gonna treat yourself, boss?
Right.
What kind of boss am I gonna be to myself?
To yourself.
And I find myself still, and I have to, if Mike sees me sitting here resting, I'm like, I'm gonna do the dishes. Just give me, and he does it too. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Why do we need to
we can be in rest and have no excuses. I know. So we're both learning that, and I just think it's beautiful. So
yeah, it is. The process of undoing all that programming it's lovely. It really is. And it's messy and really uncomfortable at times, but
imagine our children. When they're like, I'm going to be here chilling. We're like, you have no idea. And I think that's beautiful.
I agree. Yes. I couldn't agree more.
Okay, my last question for you.
Okay.
What would you like, you're a living ancestor right now. Everything you're doing right now is building to what your kids remember of you, what they will share with their family of wow, I remember my mom. So I like to call myself as a living ancestor. The things I'm doing are how I will be remembered. the traditions in my home and even the feisty things about me. So how do you, just like with your mother-in-law, how do you want to be remembered as the ancestor when we think of you in your lineage?
I think, well, first off, I would love for my kids to think of me as someone who just didn't take herself too seriously, you know, because that's how I would define how I was before with the career. And
Okay.
I took myself very seriously. I was very like self-important and and so I feel myself like kind of getting off that ledge, and I hope that I'll be thought of as somebody who didn't take themselves too seriously, although, you know, there is serious business that I do. There's meaningful accomplishments along the way, but it's just not that like self-important, you know. And that, you know, like I love to laugh, and I have a really intense laugh, and I can't control it. It's just like my laugh. It is what it is. But like, I think that is like an important part of my identity and personality, and the laughter and the silliness and the joking around and the constantly looking for like the fun in things. And then I think really probably the most important thing is whatever the antithesis of a people pleaser would be, although antithesis might not be the right word, because it's like, you know, I don't want to be a person who is like totally unaware and doesn't like care at all about what others think. You know, I want to, like, relationships are obviously really important to me. But, you know, just being a person who's able to live as their authentic self, which, you know, I find myself constantly having those conversations with both kids, you know, and one kid does that more easily than the other. You know, and so I would hope that they specifically remember me as somebody who constantly challenged them to like really ask themselves like, okay, well, am I making that choice because that really is my choice? Or am I making that choice because I'm trying to make sure that like mom and dad are okay with that choice, or my friends around me are okay with that choice? And that's really hard. That's hard for humans. That's very hard for children.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I hope I would constantly be kind of in the back of their minds, like as that voice of like, is this really who you are and who you want to be? And if not, ask the bus to stop and get off, like, you know, and like, let's get on a different one, you know.
It sounds like you're really saying flexibility, fun, and authenticity.
Yeah.
And they will be like,
that's very well put.
mom.
Yes.
Well, no, I just like, you painted the picture and I was like, wow, it just feels very like, go with it.
Yes.
You know, I could picture you like, it's okay.
Totally. And like, make a change. Like, it doesn't matter how deep you are into something, you know, whether it's a relationship or a career or like whatever it is, like, you've always got a choice. There are always choices. And if you can get into a space where you can identify what the choices are, therein lies the freedom, you know, for you to like reconnect with who you really are.
And you're really helping your kids because you're modeling it now. And you're showing like, I mess up sometimes.
Totally.
And it's okay.
Totally.
And I find like, because so many women in my lineage are, you know, we're Latinas. They were born in Mexico. They lived in Mexico. So it was a different time, but they sacrificed a lot. They were more like second, you know, actually last after the kids.
Yeah.
So they didn't speak up. So I always think like, when my ancestors look down on me, they won't want me to speak up. They want me to be like them.
Right.
That's so far from. Every time I meditate and I feel my like higher self connect with my ancestors, they're like, speak up, do what we can.
I love that.
And I just know it. And so it really took me getting to a place to hear that awareness of, they don't want you to just do what they did because they did it. On the contrary, it's like you saying, hey, be your authentic self. Even if I didn't, you know, so.
Yeah, or even if I messed up along the way. And it's, as you were speaking, I was thinking about like, you know, I know my parents aren't perfect. I know that there were things, but I don't really know what they were. You know, I don't think that they were very open about mistakes they made.
Oh, honey, that's a whole nother episode. Parents and not being vulnerable.
Yeah, and so I think that was part of like what I took on was like, oh, well, they're perfect and I'm expected to be perfect, so let me be perfect and so it's it's really different how I'm parenting. When
people are closed off, it comes across as to kids like, well, they know everything and everything I do is wrong, but really they're showing you this much of themselves.
No,
and as a kid, you're so vulnerable.
Totally. And my little one said as we were driving to school this morning, just out of nowhere, he's like, Mom, you don't know everything. And I was like, well, you know what? You're right. I don't know everything. I know a lot about some things, and there's a lot more that I don't know, you
I
know?
love that.
And then he proceeded to tell me that Santa knows everything, and I was like, well, okay.
Well, then,
it's fine.
technically,
Turns out.
well, then,
spoiler.
right. He's going to find out that, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Robin.
Thank you. It's so fun
everything
to
I
chat
wanted
with
it
you.
to be.
Oh, that's great. I'm
Yes.
really honored. Thank you again.
No.
It's been awesome, and I'm just like, I'm rooting for you. Like,
Aw.
I love what you do in all these different like facets of your
Thank you.
life, and I feel like I'm like a cheerleader for you.
Thank you. And I feel it. And that's really what helps, because sometimes I'm like, but I feel it. And then you are generous in spirit to share. And, you know, we might do this in a couple years and see what else we've uncovered.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, who we are today isn't who we are
I know.
going to be in the future. So.
Like we said, why didn't we record that one thing? And it's like,
I
you know
know.
what?
I
Here we
know.
are starting. Thank you,
Yeah.
Robin.
All right. Thanks.
Have a great day.